Welcome, welcome, Mike Madrid.
Great to be with you, Molly. It's been a long time.
I'm delighted to be here, and you and I know each other well, and I'm
Yeah.
very excited. And we are going to start by talking about the damning new documents. I feel like we shouldn't be enthusiastic, but we are enthusiastic because we're getting to at least hear what's happening, which is something. Damning new documents obtained by Judiciary Democrats. So here we go. Previously unseen, this is reporting from the New York Times today. Previously unseen documents reveal that Susie Wiles witnessed Trump showing a classified map to an unnamed plane passenger, and president took sensitive documents accessible only to 6 people in the United States government, and God knows what he did with them. Mike Madrid, you are a campaign guy.
Yeah.
So you actually have a little bit of expertise when it comes to this,
In revealing
though.
classified documents?
That I was not saying that. That do not have
I
expertise
do
in,
not.
hopefully. But
Yeah.
being on a campaign airplane
Yeah.
with a candidate,
Yeah.
so what do you think was going on there?
Well, look, I think Donald Trump came across some things that he thought he could make some money off of. Like, that's why he has it. It's clearly not in the national interest, right? I mean, he's not like, let me
Yes.
do some extra homework and some extra study to get us out of this situation. He's like, hey, wait a second. Jackpot. This is worth
Right.
money. And so that's what happened.
I want to talk about this letter and why it's relevant. Now, first, we should talk about there is a legal, I want to say, circumference to this. So you have classified documents. It is illegal to take them. Donald Trump has this broad immunity thanks to John Roberts and his
Yeah.
infinite wisdom. But
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily mean that Susie Wiles has it.
Precisely. And there are clearly a handful of people in that inner circle who don't have that same kind of immunity, as I understand it. Not a lawyer. But
Right.
regardless, even if there isn't legal fallout, there needs to be political fallout. And why
For
that's why this
sure.
coming to light is so important is because I think the fact that he does have legal protections while he's clearly sharing and trading or selling national security secrets or classified information that deal with the protection of our country has got to come at some political cost, even though the court has, clearly protected him legally. I think that's the bigger issue, right? And that's what we need to be focused on.
So let's get into that political cost because one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here is you are an expert on California. And what we should probably talk about that too, because there's a big
Yeah.
governor's race going on that
Yeah.
seems insane. But first, I want you to talk about Hispanic voters,
Mhm.
what that means and what that looks like, because that was a group that broke to Trump in a way that nobody really, though you may have seen it coming. So talk us through where Hispanic voters are now and what that looks like. And again, I know the important caveat that is not a monolith.
Yeah, yeah, but let's dig a little bit deeper, right? We all hear Latinos aren't a monolith, and it kind of puts us to sleep now. Let me talk about what that is and what that means. So,
Please.
Molly, when you and I met back in 2020 now, it's been a little while, and first started kind of talking. When I was with the Lincoln Project, I was saying there's this shift happening, and Biden's numbers are a lot closer than they look. I think we're gonna win Arizona. I think we're gonna win Georgia. But these numbers aren't he's not gonna win by 6 or 7 points like everybody's
Yeah.
polling is saying. He's losing Latino voters at a rate faster than we're picking up these, college-educated Republican voters. And
Yeah.
that's in fact what happened, is that this rightward shift that kind of shocked the nation in 2024 when Trump comes back and wins, actually started in 2020. We could
Yeah.
see it. That's why the poll was close, and that's why I was kind of ringing the alarm bell. So what I did then was I wrote a book called The Latino Century because I didn't have a party anymore and the Democrats weren't going to
Right.
listen to me. So I was saying this is coming. Donald Trump could win re-election with a historic share of the Latino vote. And that's in fact what happened. So the question becomes why? And the why answer is really important when we start looking at the fact that these Latino voters are overwhelmingly voting on economic populist concerns.
Right.
They're not believers in either party. This is a very nonpartisan or anti-partisan, I should say, disaffiliated voter. It
Mhm.
doesn't have the same racial anchors that black and white voters, frankly, have.
Mhm.
They don't see the world that way. And they're voting kind of against the system. These same voters that were really compelled by Bernie Sanders, especially those under 30, were also voting for Donald Trump in this kind of very loud statement, Molly, that the system isn't working and we don't see much difference between the two parties. And so they vote for Trump in record numbers, breaking almost 50-50 in 2024. But where it gets even more interesting is 2025, last year, where you see an equally historic and in most cases bigger shift back away from the Republicans. And notice I said away
Mhm.
from the Republicans, not necessarily to the Democrats, although that's the way it works in a two-party system. And Latino voters are the one true swing voter out there, and they're not moving by 2 or 3 points. They're moving by 15 and 20 points,
Yeah.
right? And that swing is the same in New York City, where these voters voted for Mamdani. They're voting in Passaic, New Jersey for Mikey
Mhm.
Sherrill. They're voting for Spanberger in
Right.
Manassas County, Virginia. They're voting for Tallarico in Texas.
Yeah.
And this shift is, like I said, it's not a small nominal shift. It's a massive swing. And what it's really a sign of is a de-alignment, not a realignment. And both parties are really missing the ball here with this fast growing group of voters that are going to determine who controls Congress and who will be the next president of the United States.
So you're talking about a phenomenon which I think is really interesting, which is the Gallego Trump voter.
Yeah, there you go.
So talk us through how you're in Arizona and
Hmm.
you decide that you are going to vote. Because a lot of times, what we saw in this 2024 cycle was we saw like a state like Wisconsin, they'd vote for Trump and then they'd leave the bottom of the ticket blank.
Correct.
But what's happening here is you have voters going in, voting for Rubin, and then voting for Trump. Make that make sense.
Well, let me complicate it a little bit more because I am going to close the loop, but let me give you a real example in New York City, for example. Working class Hispanic, voters, which tends to be more Puerto Rican and Dominican than Mexican American in New York City, they voted for Eric Adams in big numbers when he was first elected, right? This African American former cop at the time he was running as a centrist. They then, a couple years later, shift pretty decisively towards Trump. Trump does quite well with these same voters. And
Right.
then 6 months later, they vote in pretty equally big numbers for Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
So none of those have an ideological strain. Like you can't
Right.
look at each one of those and make ideological sense. And that's the point. So what I'm seeing for the first time, Molly, of somebody who's been watching this for 35 years, is I'm seeing Cuban Republican men in the Miami mayor's race voting for a white progressive woman against a male Cuban for mayor of Miami, voting the same way as Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, and then Mexicans in Arizona with Ruben Gallego. And I'm saying all of this to really drive home the point that it's not an ideological silver bullet, but the one common thread is all of these candidates are running against the system as it sits. And
Right.
Gallego leaned into this
Right.
knowledge. We had a lot of conversations about this heading into the campaign. He was leaning into this disaffection, and it's not partisan. They're not looking at the world through red or blue lens. They're not DSA and they're not MAGA, but they will vote for either of those candidates if the campaign is saying literally, you've got to challenge our own system. One of Ruben Gallego's
Right.
greatest strengths was saying the Democratic Party's missing it, and I hear you. That's what Trump was saying. That's what Bernie Sanders was saying. That's what Zoran Mamdani was saying. And that's why you're getting resonance.
But I also think it's economic populism,
It
right?
is. Yes.
So it's saying you need, and that was the thing I always wondered about Trump was like how Trump managed to catch the wave of economic populism in a way that the Democrats who were actually doing economic populism couldn't.
I think part of it is because the Democrats talk through a lens of policy solutions, bless their hearts. Trump
Right.
is just saying tear down the system. He doesn't provide a solution. He doesn't
Right.
even know what the solution is. I mean, let's be
Right.
honest. Trumpism isn't an ideological or philosophical understanding of anything. It depends on what he had for breakfast that morning or who he's
Right.
talking to about what his tariff levels are going to be on which country by lunchtime. So it's really more, I think, of an approach or an attitude by saying it's the system itself. And that's where kind of Republican populism, if you could say that, is not serious about governing. It's not serious about
Right.
solutions. It's only serious about destruction. What Democrats are trying to do is find policy solutions to ameliorate these systems that government can enact. And that's why I think when they do that, they can connect. But broadly, it's why you're seeing this vote split essentially 50-50. Now, I don't think it's going to split 50-50 in the midterms, but it
No.
did in 2024.
No, for sure, and that's why Trump won. So, like, what we see in Florida, I think, is a really good example of
Right.
they don't have allegiance to the Republican Party. They like Trump, maybe, though the polling right now shows they don't really like Trump anymore. And I want you to talk about the Trump made really big inroads with two groups that he has now really, really sort of shot himself in the foot with, and that's Hispanic voters and young people. Make
Yep.
those numbers
And
make
there's a
sense.
big overlap, by the way. The
Right.
younger you are, the less like you are to be white in the country, and Hispanics are the numbers that are blowing up. Get this, 38%, Molly, 38% of Hispanic voters in America are 30 years old or younger. Like, that's
Wow.
crazy. It's an incredibly young vote.
38%? Wow.
38%, right? Like,
Of
that's just
young
nuts.
voters are
Of well, no,
Hispanic,
of Hispanic voters
are
are under the
young.
age of 30. So yes, there is a
Okay.
concentric circle that overlaps. But
Right.
if we're talking about young adults and we're talking about Hispanics, a lot of times they're the same demographic. So
Wow.
understanding that I think is really key to what's going on here. But when the Republicans were celebrating, when Trump wins, comes back and wins in November 2024, again, I was kind of raising the alarm bells and saying there's no evidence saying that Latinos are becoming more Republican. None.
Right.
But there
No.
was but there was overwhelming evidence that they were becoming less democratic.
Right.
And
And
understanding that is the key to everything because these are absolutely a gettable voters for the Democratic Party, but it's going to have to get back to this middle class party that was kind of the FDR blue collar working class building things party, which it's rapidly moved away from over the past decade.
they were not partisan. These
Not
young people are
partisan.
not partisan.
Correct.
But I think they felt let down by Biden.
100%.
So talk us through that.
So understand this, and that's a great question and a great setup. So there was a lot of consternation and discussions about, especially with Latinos, is this a misogynistic, machismo culture,
Right. I
right?
want you to make
Yeah,
it make
let me
sense.
go right at it because I wrote two big chapters on this in the book exploring this. You have to understand that the two American politicians that coalesced the largest share of the Latino vote in history were one, Barack Obama,
Right.
and two, Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Wow.
Overwhelming number, 75%, like massive. So then the question becomes, well, maybe it's because she's a black woman, they don't like Kamala Harris. Well, 25 years of her political career in California was built on overperforming with Latino voters, like
Right. So
dramatic, big
that
numbers.
yeah.
So what is it? Did they just suddenly become misogynist and racist? Was it COVID? Like,
Right.
what was it, right?
Right.
Maybe an easier, explanation is they felt let down by
By Biden.
by
Yeah.
Biden, by the Biden-Harris campaign because of two reasons. The economy was quantifiably more difficult to work in. It just was.
Right.
Was it his fault?
Right.
We
Right.
can talk about
Right.
that all day long, but it was. And the other was the borders were out of control. I think we can
Right.
finally say that now.
Right.
And that was the theory of the case. It wasn't that they
Yeah.
were more pro-Trump. Of course, there's anecdotal evidence, and you could see them
Right.
on TikTok or whatever, and Latinos for Trump parades and all that nonsense. But the reality is, overwhelmingly, these voters were
Right.
responding to the failures of her tenure as vice president.
Right.
So it's not
She had
cultural.
the baggage of
Yeah, she had to carry
Biden.
the baggage. She had to carry Biden's
Yeah.
bags, and
Yeah.
it was tough. They were very
Yeah.
heavy, and so she comes out to the convention and she runs on the Langford bill. By the way, Molly,
Right.
the Langford bill, one of the most conservative Republicans in the
I
Senate, is
know.
the actual official plank in the Democratic Party as their position on
No.
immigration reform.
Which was it and which was if you wanted to win a slightly more, it doesn't play to the base, but it plays to this sort of crossover voter, which
No
is what you need.
question. And
The
again,
indies.
100%. And in fact, maybe one of the pieces you read, I wrote for the New York Times in February of 2024 saying Biden's got to pivot on
Right.
immigration because not only is that where moderate voters are, not only is that where white suburban women are, that's where Latino voters are.
Right.
Like you
Right.
can't being for border security is not inherently racist. You
Yeah.
have a big majority of Latinos saying, of course we want border security. Like who
Right.
doesn't want that? Now the way it's done is where this overreaction where Donald Trump has really repelled these voters, and
Right.
it's left the Republicans with the shortest honeymoon in world history, right? Where literally within days, he starts to alienate this new MAGA coalition, this racial realignment, which was hooey from the get-go. He immediately, with the tariff policy and the economic policy, starts pushing them back to the Democrats.
Also, what you see, I mean, right now, the polling is such that Donald Trump is as unpopular as Biden was after the debate. So,
He's worse than Biden ever was on the economy.
right. So, and he's unpopular on things that he used to be popular on,
Yes.
the
Yes.
economy, immigration.
Yeah.
I would love you to, if you're running in the midterms now, and like I think about, there are so many states that are really the Democrats would like to pick up,
Mhm.
and Texas is the one that I think when you think about Hispanic voters,
Mhm.
that is the one that really is kind of. I think, Florida, sure, but Florida is a hard state. So, and Arizona is Democrat. So, talk us through what it would look like in order to pick up Texas.
I'm gonna sound a little nerdy right now, but I think your
Yeah.
audience is okay with
No,
some of
well, that's
my
what we want.
geeky data
Yeah.
stuff. So in 2020, when I was with the Lincoln Project and you and I were talking more regularly, and I was spending millions of dollars in Arizona and Georgia, everybody thought we were nuts. But those states had been trending for a couple of years in towards a more purple bluish direction. And
Yeah.
states tend to stay on that trajectory until they pop over.
Right.
We could talk about North Carolina moving in that direction, to this cycle. Now, Texas was always anomalous. And I was saying, Texas is not going to go blue anytime soon, largely because Democrats are losing the Hispanic vote. Like
Right.
when we used to talk about turning Texas blue, it was always like, wait till the Latino vote starts to grow big enough and
Right.
suddenly all these naturally born Democrats are going to take over. You didn't hear that too much in the last,
Right.
4, 8 years. What you need to win Texas is you need a very good political environment, what we call the mood of the electorate, which is clearly there.
Yeah.
We're looking at polling today, Molly, which has Democrats at a +11 environment. That is
Well,
crazy. The
that
generic
state
ballot.
senate
Yeah,
seat, well, but also the state senate seat for Mar-a-Lago, which just flipped.
that's Florida. And look,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, and look, I have been the most critical of Democrats looking at Texas for the past 20 years because I was
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
at the Hispanic vote saying it's not what you think it is. I'm now saying it's absolutely in play. And I
Yeah.
think
Wow.
Florida is gettable. I
Yeah.
genuinely do. Look at what happened in
Wild.
Mar-a-Lago and look
Yeah.
what happened in Miami's mayor's race.
Yeah.
These shifts are not 3, 4 point shifts, which are big.
They're
These are
11.
11 to 15
Yeah.
points. If you had told us a year ago, and I was kind of saying we're heading in a double-digit Democratic positive environment, you don't need to redistrict all these seats because you're going to win them anyway.
Well,
That's the environment that we're heading. But that's why, Tallarico, you've got the right candidate, you have the right
right.
political environment, and perhaps most importantly, you have bad candidates on the Republican side, which is the
Yeah.
trifecta. That's what you need to win a seat like this. And if Democrats do win Texas, I mean, you've cut the head off of the snake.
One less thing, you do have Republicans in a real bind here because Paxton actually is popular. And while he might not win indies, you might suppress the base by
100%.
nominating Cornyn.
And that no question about that. And they've got a problem either way.
Right.
Because if Cornyn wins, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, Paxton's the only true Republican in this race, so I ain't going to vote for
Right.
that Cornyn guy. And then, and vice versa, to what you just said. So and on top of that, the Republican turnout model has been very, very bad.
Yeah.
These guys, what are you going to go vote for? The Iran war? For more
Right.
tariffs? For a worse economy? Like there's not a single policy position right now where Donald Trump is in the positive. And most of them are historically upside down. Negative
Right.
43 on the economy? Like I've never it's worse than Biden, like you said. These are bad
I have
numbers.
I have one last question for
All
you,
right, yeah.
which is there's the dummy mander. So Trump did this thing with redistricting those 5 seats in Texas. California then gave 5 seats to the Democrats.
Right.
Are those seats now gettable because of the dummy mander? I thought the Texas seats were like pretty cooked in a way that they were unwinnable. Like, but is there a world where Democrats pick up 2 of them? Or, I mean,
3, I'm
just
predicting 3 of them.
okay,
And
so
the reason
explain.
why, so what happens is Texas, They know that a bad cycle is coming. Texas pushes these 5 new seats redrawn. The only way you can get there in Texas now is you've got to draw Hispanic seats. The
Right.
Republicans are believing their own press clippings. They're looking at 2024. There's a new racial realignment. This is the new
Right.
base of the party. They draw 5 new seats. 3 of them have a Hispanic majority.
Wow.
The problem is we're seeing in some of these Texas special elections a 50-point swing in that Senate special election, 50. Crazy numbers. And so when you start to see that, a Republican plus 12 seat is totally in play. I
Yeah.
interviewed Bobby Polito, who's running against Monica de la Cruz in the main battleground seat right there in one of these 3 seats. His campaign is just off the charts. He's raising a ton
Right.
of money. The momentum is there. The national narrative is moving in his direction. I think you're going to see a pickup of the 3, at least 3 of the 5 Republican seats will go to the Democrats in probably the biggest dummy mander in the last century.
And if that happens, like that will be fucking unbelievable because it
Yeah.
will mean Democrats pick up 5 seats in California, 3 seats in Texas,
Texas.
seats that they were, yeah, not supposed to get. This is so interesting. I hope you will come back in like a couple months so we can have you
Anytime, Molly.
back and
You
talk
bet.
about this. So interesting.
I'm
Thank
here for
you.
you. Great to talk to you. It's been a while.